It's Bullseye. I'm Wyatt Cenac. My first guest, Sam Richardson. Sam's made appearances on shows like The Office, Arrested Development, Drunk History, but you probably know him from his role on HBO's Veep. Sam plays Richard Splett, a kind of goofy, weird, but well-meaning aide to the president. If you aren't sure who I'm talking about, he's basically the only happy character on Veep. Now Sam's working on a new show, Detroiters, that he co-created and stars in with SNL alum Tim Richardson. The two came up together taking improv classes in Detroit, and they also worked side by side at Chicago's Second City. In Detroiters, Sam and Tim play Sam and Tim. They're a pair of fresh-faced ad men living in the Motor City, but they're tired of shooting ads for bargain-price local businesses and desperate to move on to bigger and better things. It's a buddy comedy, but Sam and Tim are real-life friends, and it comes through on screen. It's endearing, weird, and hilarious. In this scene from the show's pilot, Sam and Tim are chasing the business of Carter Grant, a Chrysler exec played by Jason Sudeikis. Jason's also an executive producer for the series. Here, the guys have just crashed Carter's business lunch, and he's trying to let them down gently.
But, I'm just not sure that your firm is what we're looking for right now, gentlemen.
Oh, sure, because you're probably going to go with these fine folks from Chicago, because that's where you make your cars. Wait a minute, no you don't. Where do they make their cars, Sam?
Right here in Detroit.
Come on, Carter.
You make your cars here. You make your ads here.
Fellas, it took a lot of balls coming in here like this.
Well, we were already eating here,
Receipt.
so...
Right, the receipt, yeah. Tell you what, why don't you come by tomorrow? 8 o'clock.
8, I can't at 8. I just can't. I have dinner with my wife and I can't cancel.
Oh, no, I meant AM.
AM, yeah. Makes way more sense, yeah.
A little early.
We'll be there, okay? See you in the morning. Thank you.
Gentlemen, Mrs. Pomerantz.
Ms.
Oh,
Sam Richardson, welcome to Bullseye.
thank you for having me.
So Detroiters, this is the brainchild of yourself and Tim Robinson, both Second City guys, both from the Detroit area, correct?
Yep, correct. We both met and became great friends in Detroit, and then eventually left Detroit to work in Chicago, then L.A. and New York. But the whole time we just wanted to come back to Detroit and do a show about it. We wanted to bring something back to Detroit. Now, years later, we finally get to do that. So it's a dream come true,
Well, I think what's interesting about the show is that there is the idea that I feel like a lot of people have of Detroit as it's been seen, whether it's in movies or TV shows or car commercials, that is this sense of Detroit as barren wasteland. Mm-hmm. And it feels like you all have tried to not show that side, but show the life and the vibrancy in Detroit.
Right. Because it's true of Detroit, yes, there are those barren areas and those places have been hit really hard with economic disparity, but that's not everything that's in Detroit. Detroit is a functioning working city, so we wanted to show what Detroit is for Detroiters. It's not the story of everybody who lives there, but it's certainly the story of people who live there. And it was important to us to finally get to show that aspect because it's never seen in anything. It's always the butt of the joke to land on what the worst place in America could be, and it's not that,
Right, yeah. Well, and it feels like throughout the show there are a lot of Detroit-specific references. I believe the newscaster, Mort Krim, is a local Detroit longtime newscaster.
Longtime, legend, Mort Krim. Will Ferrell apparently, based Ron Burgundy off of Mort Krim.
Really?
Yeah, because he was a big-time, I think it was Philadelphia newscaster before he moved to Detroit and became, the Detroit, main guy, legendary anchor. So it was, amazing to get him, because Tim, especially, is such, a news anchor, head. To him, they're, sports figures. So he, knows
those are his baseball cards.
Yeah, exactly. He's got, their trading cards and everything. So, the chance to get Mort Krim in there is oh, it's got to be Mort Krim. Can we get Mort Krim? And Mort Krim was, so happy to do it. We had, a few auditions for people, but then we were let's just see if Mort Krim will do it. And then he put himself on tape to, audition for it. And
really?
Yeah. But he lives in Florida. So he put himself on tape, and then we're like, well, if Mort Krim wants to do it, then by all means, Mort Krim, you know. And so we would like set up like a Skype kind of thing. So he'd be in a like a local station in Florida, and we would just kind of Skype and like just feed him lines, and he would do them. And of course, it's Mort Krim, so he nails it every time. Like, so the comedy of having this like really sharp, professional, best of the best anchor, like saying these like kind of one-off jokes, like these like odd jokes, is just a perfect juxtaposition.
Now, for people who aren't from Detroit, are there other things that you would point out that you would say, oh, that's a very specific Detroit reference?
Yeah, like Mort Krim, like we're always like snacking on like real Detroit snacks, like Better Made potato chips. We show them a lot in there, and like legitimately we're just eating them on set, you know. And like Faygo Pop, like whenever there's a Faygo Pop, Faygo is a local Detroit pop or soft drink or a soda, as you say from anywhere else. In Detroit we call it pop. But whenever there's like a can of pop in there, it's because we're drinking it between takes. And we're like, well, that can just sit there, right? That can be in the scene. It's like a little bit of like flair, but like legitimately,
I'm sure that's
drink
driving your continuity person crazy.
Yeah, I'm talking about driving them crazy. Because like, I'm just picking up this pop, drinking it, and putting it down wherever. They're like, well, no, you can't. You got to turn it the way it was before. It's got to be like right in the exact same spot. But you didn't stop me. I just wanted my red pop. I would drink like maybe 6 or 8 a day. It's probably not the best thing to do for yourself to drink any amount of pop that much. But
no, while this show sounds like a love letter to Detroit, it also sounds like it could be leading to a heart attack for Sam Richardson.
Yeah, so we'll see. Whichever one happens first.
As long as you can keep doing the show to get at least one stent in.
Yeah, exactly. And then like we can probably CGI me in if need be. If I have like a hospital stay, I can become like an animated character, which could be fun.
I would like to see that.
Yeah,
personally. Yeah. So you grew up in Detroit, but you also your father was from the Detroit area and your mother's from Ghana. Is that correct?
Uh-huh. So my dad is born and raised in Detroit, and my mom is from Ghana.
And as a child, you split time between the two?
I did. I would go, like, I'd spend summers over there in Ghana. And for first and second grade, I lived in Ghana because my grandfather was passing. So, like, my mother had to be there. And, of course, like, you know, like, to be with my mom while my grandfather was passing, like, you know, it wasn't about being back and forth. 'Cause my grandfather was a chief. So there was a whole lot of, like, ceremonies and events and things that went with his funeral and with his, you know, his being ill. You know, it wasn't like a pop your head in kind of thing. My mother had to be there, and I don't think like 2 years just with my dad, probably not the thing. I think with my parents, they were like, probably best to stay with Lydia than Lamar.
Wow. And so growing up, even for part of your life, whether it was those 2 years or summers in Ghana and then going to Detroit, it feels like it has to be a little bit of like a culture shock.
Yes, which I think kind of it's for sure a culture shock, and it gives you like a macro view of where you are in those places. However, like as a kid, like coming to Detroit, it made me appreciate all these things. You know, I'm like, oh, I love this city. I see all the advancements that are here that aren't in Ghana, but at the same time, in Ghana. In Africa, everybody's black. In Detroit, 70%, 80% are black, but like they're not at the head of everything. You know, in Ghana, all the politicians, all the business owners, and like at all levels, from the highest class to the lowest, are black. Where in Detroit, you know, it's more spread around. So you have this confidence. I can be king. I can be president. I can be whatever. Coming back to Detroit or back to the States in general.
Well, even when you talk about that, did you ever see the documentary When We Were Kings, the Ali documentary?
I still have not seen that.
There's a moment in that documentary where he says a similar thing. He's in a plane flying into, I believe it's Zaire, and he's commenting to the camera, look, these pilots are black. I've never seen black pilots, and I've never seen all of the business owners are black, and all the politicians are black, and how amazing it is. And he kind of says he wishes that he could have seen this when he were younger, or that kids from Louisville could see this coming from a place where he felt marginalized.
And it's exactly that, But at the same time, I was living in Ghana as like a little kid. I was like, well, where's like the TV and like the McDonald's? So like all I wanted to do was come back to Detroit so I could like eat McDonald's and like watch like Ninja Turtles. I wanted to watch A-Team on television every day, which was like the trade-off for living as a prince in Africa. I didn't get to watch the A-Team, and I much preferred the A-Team.
It's Bullseye. I'm talking with Sam Richardson. He co-stars in the new Comedy Central series, Detroiters. Just looking at the various characters you play, there's a certain confidence that they all seem to have, regardless of their status, whether it's your character on Detroiters or the character you play on Veep, Richard Splett. There is this sense of assurance that I think just hearing you talk about that confidence that you brought back as a child from Ghana. And I'm just wondering, are there other influence comedically or just things that you consumed when you were there that you feel like helped to shape your voice as a comedian?
Like comedically, I can't think of like things that were specific to Ghana, because like there was satellite TV, and I would always like watch VHS tapes that either my dad would send to me from the States, or there was like a video club called Revell Video Club, which was like down the road from where I lived. Things like Police Academy, I watched all of them maybe 7 times a piece. So 7 by 7 was that 49?
That is 49. Good. That's some good math.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm confident in my math also.
Well, yeah. I was going to say, though, if at this age in your life, 7 by 7, you should be able to.
Yeah, I've got a little note card here that I kind of reference for it, too.
Right. But, I mean, the fact that you asked it as a question while we were talking about this confidence that you have mathematically, it seems like you should.
It was just to be a false humbleness.
Oh,
because
okay.
I knew it was 49, very, very, very much so.
All right. Really?
But I was like, ooh, I'm bragging about my skills in math. Let me kind of taper myself.
8 times 8.
64.
Oh, all right. Good. Throughout the rest of this interview, I'll just occasionally throw in a math problem.
All right.
Yeah. Well, we talked briefly about Veep, but I wanna play a clip from Veep. And in the HBO show Veep, Sam Richardson plays a congressional aide named Richard Splett. In this scene, he manages to impress President Selina Meyer, who's played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. The president is in a panic about a ballot recount, and it's Splett's time to shine.
Ben, what do we do?
We need to get a hold of our people in Nevada. Don't.
Well, the vast majority of Nevada voting is done by machine. Once the Nevada Secretary of State certifies the count, we'll then have 72 hours to request a recount. At that point, 5% of the precincts will be selected, and if there's a discrepancy of more than 1%, a full hand recount will be requested. I actually did my doctorate in recount procedures in the West.
Excellent work, Richard. Richard works for me.
You have a doctorate?
2. Constitutional law and veterinary medicine, which was my fallback.
But you were getting my coffee.
Which is much harder, because, you have so many different moods, like a half calf, and a full calf, macchiato. Macchiato.
Okay, Richard, you are going to be my recount specialist. Jonah, you're working for Richard.
Wait, what?
Amy?
Jonah, with me, please.
I think what's interesting and what's fun watching you perform is there's a real joy that you bring to not just the character but to any scene you're in. And with a show like Veep, I feel like there's so much stuff going on and there are so many characters at work. How do you find your space in that world? How do you kind of get in there?
For me, honestly, like there's so much stuff. Like when I'm doing a scene in Veep, like I'm doing a lot of stuff just for myself on like the side because I'm just trying to keep myself present in it. And like with the character Richard, he himself is just so happy to be there that it lets me as Sam be like happy to be there. And I'm just doing things, and sometimes the camera will pick it up, sometimes it won't. So like honestly, like if the camera was on me, you'd see there's like little even things I'm just doing, like looking around the room, even like when I'm not the focus. So I think that kind of helps make him real when like he is like when the focus is on him, because he's like kind of just like so present the whole time, but also absent in thinking he's like a step behind.
Right.
But but he's like everything he takes in is, you know, important to him, and like he's like he's excited about all things.
How much of sort of your experience at Veep has influenced how you've made Detroiters? Are there things that you saw in the process of making Veep that you said, oh, let's lift some of that and bring it over to Detroiters? Detroiters is your show.
I think some of the aspects like when a line or when like a scene doesn't feel natural. Like in Veep, you know, we do the table read, and then if something doesn't feel natural, we put the scripts aside and we re-improvise the scene and kind of try and make it feel more real. And then the writers take that and they kind of fold it back into the scene and then make it feel just a little bit more natural. And even on the day, like if something doesn't really work, you can find it. So we kind of did that. So I kind of lifted that notion and put it in Detroiters as well. Like if something doesn't feel right, we kind of like improvise our way out of it and back into it. So whatever scenes didn't feel like they worked, we then take those scenes, like kind of like find the beats of it again, and then like kind of just improvise through it and like kind of borrow lines that were still there, but like kind of just try and find a way to just make it real and natural and not stilted.
Right. Yeah. And the relationship that you and Tim have is such a familial relationship. And I want to play another clip from Detroiters. In this scene, Sam and Tim are talking about their struggle to come up with a good pitch for Chrysler.
We're dead. Eddie's gonna kill us, and we have got nothing on this Chrysler pitch.
We'll come up with something.
No, we won't, man. We're dumb.
Hey. You remember when we first took over your dad's company and everybody quit and all the clients left all on the same day?
Yeah, of course I remember.
Well, you remember like a year later when we got our first client?
Sure, Stan from the carpet store.
Yeah, well, what do you want to call himself? What do you want to call himself?
Big Stan the carpet guy.
What did we call him?
Big Stan the carpet man.
That's right, and why?
Because it rhymed.
Because it rhymed.
Yes.
See, buddy, we did it then. We'll do it
Now.
again, Betty. It's because it rhymes with
It's gotta rhyme.
It's got to rhyme. That's the whole point of it.
That's Sam Richardson and Tim Robinson from their show Detroiters. And what's great about that is it feels like there's a real patience that you all have with one another. And just even in that clip, just a trust that exists there. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you and Tim first met and just your working relationship over the years.
Yeah.
And it's okay
Tim
if
and
you
I
want to cry. Like, this is my first time doing Bullseye, and they told me if I can make somebody shed a few tears, I get a free Starbucks gift card.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll squeeze out some tears, even if they're crocodile. I'll make it work.
Hey, all I care about is that gift card. I don't even drink coffee. I just like winning.
You can get like a scone. A lot of options there. They do smoothies. Yeah. So Tim and I first met in the Detroit improv scene. Tim was my level A Second City improv teacher when I was 18, and Tim was 21, and then we just became fast friends. Boom, immediately, and we just hang out all the time. So then, like from that moment on, we would like kind of just always go to the bar. He would sneak me into a local bar because I was 19. He was 21. It was just about confidence, like boosting forward. Right. And we just like hang out all the time. We did a bunch of shows together in Detroit at Plant Ant Theater and at Second City in Detroit. Then we both went off to Chicago eventually. Tim joined one touring company. I joined another one. They hired us to the main stage together to write shows together.
That's at Second City?
At Second City in Chicago.
Okay, yep.
So like that relationship, like in that clip, is kind of a real life way that we are with each other, because like we'll have a tendency to spin out and like kind of like all of a sudden plummet in confidence.
Right.
Or Tim does a lot, and I'm always like, hey, buddy, what are you talking about? You're hilarious, it's fine. So like that's a real aspect of our relationship is, you know, we have these highs and lows that we kind of maintain each other through.
When you and Tim met, you were 18, he was 21, and around that time he would start sneaking you into bars. Did it work?
It honestly did, because like the idea is like once you get in, you then like so I would sneak in like I'd like somebody would put up a block, people who were regulars would get in there and you just like beeline it in and like hope that nobody asks any questions. You're just very confident. Because nobody's like really looking for an underage guy, but like you have to check the IDs. But if you got past that, cool. Get in there, get your drink very confidently, and then make friends with the door guy. You know what I mean? Like little comments there. So then he gets to know you by face and makes him friends with the bartender.
Right.
So you just like get to know you, and so it's not. And then before you know it, like you're just a regular. So you walk in, you're like, "Hey, what's up, Donald?" And you just kind of walk in without ever being ID'd. And we go to this one bar in Detroit, and I became a regular there when I was 19, and then I had my 21st birthday at this bar, and the owner was like, "Oh, Sam, happy birthday. How old are you?" I was like, "I'm 21, George." He's like, "You son of a..." He was so mad at me. He didn't talk to me for 2 months.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But like, I was like, "Hey, you know what I mean? Statute of limitations doesn't exist. I'm 21. I'm legal now."
Yeah.
You can go back and arrest me when I was 19? Can't.
Yeah, and you know what? You got all that tip money. That would have gone to Faygo Soda and Best Made Chips, and instead it's going to you.
Exactly. Better made chips.
Oh, Better Made Chips.
Yeah.
Well,
Best is one level above it.
Yeah.
Which I bet is coming.
Your show, Detroiters, obviously set in Detroit. You grew up in Detroit. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more, Sam, about what your experience growing up in Detroit was like, and as you've seen the city change, how has your experience with the city changed, if it's changed at all?
My experience in Detroit is kind of unique, but not entirely unique. I went to, growing up, of course, my mother is from Ghana, but my dad's from Detroit, and was always involved in politics and also restaurants. My dad was a restaurateur, but also like a campaign manager for my aunt, Barbara Rose Collins, who was a congresswoman and a city council member. But I went to like private school. I went to a friend's school in Detroit, which was like a small Quaker school, very, very tiny, but it was in Detroit. It was at St. Aubin in Lafayette. St. Aubin and LaSalle. Well, let me go back. It was on St. Aubin.
Oh, sure. Yeah, St. Aubin. Yeah. On Lafayette or on
St.
LaSalle?
Aubin. That's what I'm trying to remember. In my house.
I'm making stuff up as though I know my way around Detroit.
It's very, very convincing.
Yeah, thank you.
It is actually closed. The school closed a couple years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Closed for financial reasons, or just they were like, we taught as many kids as we can. We sent enough geniuses into the world.
I think it's a little bit of both. They're like, all right, Sam's out there. He's doing his thing. I think we've done our part.
Right. But with that, sort of talking about stuff like that, like the school you went to as a kid doesn't exist anymore. A city that's known for the amount of change that it goes through. How do you reckon with that? How do you, what is your experience with that?
Well, it's interesting because, then after moving out of the city to work at Second City in Chicago, then moving up to L.A. to try and work in TV and stuff, I'd go back 3-4 times a year, and you'd kind of watch things decline, and then all of a sudden it turned around. So now there's all these new businesses downtown, and it's being revitalized. So much of these spaces are just kind of it's watching the city grow again, because you'd watch let's say I'd come back every 3 months, and you just kind of watch buildings, you just kind of watch this decline every 3 months, and it's a little depressing, despairing, but then to see that kind of boom start to happen, and then to watch people really start to invest in the city and to kind of bring it back has been an incredible breath of air and confidence in the city, because that city is the most confident place I think in the world. But it's nice to see that confidence rewarded.
Sam Richardson, I want to thank you for coming on Bullseye today. Thank you very much.
Wyatt, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Sam Richardson. You can catch his show Detroiters Tuesday nights at 10:30. Season 6 of HBO's Veep kicks off next month.